We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle. And you'll notice, if you look in your order of service here, we've modified the words slightly so that at the end of each verse, we say, we've modified the language to be more inclusive. So at the end of each verse, family, neighbors, all. And we realize that whenever we modify the words, some will inadvertently revert back to what they're used to, and that's fine. There's no need to feel awkward or embarrassed. It will just result in this beautiful cacophony of sound that reflects the diversity of our congregation. So we welcome this, and this is We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle number 212.
Let us gather with all of who we are. The parts we like and the parts we don't. The identities that feel important and those we'd like to shed. The pieces we're proud of and the parts that maybe we've set some New Year's resolutions to change. Bring all of who you are this morning. Author Ozan Varol says, "We all have stories we live by that aren't fixed truths. They're just old scripts we've been following without realizing it. If you tell yourself that travel is exhausting, you'll only notice the hassles, the delayed flights, the cramped seats, and miss the little joys along the way. If you tell yourself you are awkward in social settings, you'll tense up before conversations even begin, missing moments that could have been easy and fun. The point isn't to force yourself to love every rainy day or magically turn into an extrovert. It's about creating space. Space to question the stories you've been living by and experiment with something. So this morning, friends, let our chalice flame open our hearts to the spaciousness to tell our stories anew. Carolyn, likely that in the days to come, people who unit described inclusive. Welcome to all of you. Find yourself here because you know the Unitarian is a place where diversity after being reminded here. The newcomer card, been a long time member. We encourage you to wear everything. This helps everyone. We love having people of all ages in this community. As you came in, we hope you saw the basket of activities for hands that like to stay busy. This is for all of you at any age. We welcome all the wiggles and sounds of a multi-generational community. And if you haven't already, put your phone on worship mode. We're so glad each and every one of you are here.
So the musical reflection is number 1011 in the teal book. And this hymn is made up of two sections, marked with a 1 inside a circle and a 2 inside a circle. For today, we'll sing section 1 twice, and then choose either section 1 or 2 to sing twice, and then back to 1 twice.
This is an excerpt of a sermon published in our National Unitarian Universalist magazine, UU World, by Marshall Hawkins. We grow and learn through a two-part process of action and reflection. It's only through our reflections that our actions of the past make any sense. And it is only by acting that we make real what we come to believe through our reflections. But how often it seems that our actions outpaced our consideration of them. They're like unopened packages that pile up, patiently waiting to be looked at. One way that reflection happens is very simple, through storytelling. In hospice work, chaplains often encourage people to engage in a process called life review. That is, telling stories from the past. It turns out that we come to understand the significance of our lives through narrative, more than through any didactic or literal way. This isn't just true at the end of life, of course. It's true anytime. We help each other read our lives by listening to and telling each other our tales. The power of the story is how we make sense of ideas that are beyond our rational minds, ideas that are not logical or linear. We record the most important things about being human through stories. The sacred scriptures of the world's religions are mostly stories. Jesus' most profound teachings are in the form of parables. Great literature tends to tell us more about ourselves than any studies or psychology texts. Poetry, art, film, they're all cultural responses to our quest for meaning. As we reflect, we make meaning. Whatever answers there are lie in our living our way through to them, and then thinking about what we've done. A cycle of action and reflection.
So our service today is an invitation for you to consider your personal involvement, your stories with this congregation. And this might feel weird for some of you that might be newer to the congregation. And for some of you, you're going to have lots and lots of stories of the ways that you've been involved with our church. So I want you to loosen any feelings of thinking that there's a right way or a wrong way to tell the stories, or a right way or a wrong way to have been involved with this congregation. And just let your stories of participation be your stories, whether it's only a story from today, if it's your first time, or if it's a story of 30 years of participation. We all have stories to share. So to get us into the mood of telling stories, I'm going to invite you into a reflective, meditative space. Maybe that means finding a comfortable space in your chair. Perhaps it means closing your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Find a space where you can think a little bit about your story of your involvement with this congregation. And I invite you to take a few deep breaths, or at least the kind of breaths that help you feel centered and present. And to try to sink into your chair or into a space that feels a little more comfortable. And I invite you to get into a space of feeling your connection with this UUCO community as if you're in your own story, in your head and in your heart. And I want you to think back, way back for some, less far back, maybe not really far back at all for others, to the circumstances that brought you here to this community. This might be your very first time in the congregation just this morning, or maybe you were a part of its founding. Just think back as far as you can to your first connection with this church. Perhaps you were seeking community after a hard thing happened in your life. Maybe you were struggling with the religion of your upbringing, and you were looking for a different kind of spirituality in your life. Maybe you were a young person, or you were connected to young people who were asking questions that you did not know how to answer, and you wanted support. Maybe you were a Unitarian Universalist somewhere else, and you were excited to find UUs here in Ogden. Just think back to those earliest memories. And in those earliest memories, what was happening in your life? Who was there with you, supporting you or not supporting you? How did it feel to be finding this community? And what were the circumstances in the world that were happening or are happening if you're just finding us? So we're going to do a little bit of active reflecting today in a couple different parts. And the first one is right now. You should, and okay, sometimes life in church gets a little clunky, especially when we try out some new things. So this might be one of those days. Just invite you to breathe through it. There is going to be a clipboard or something like a clipboard, maybe a binder with a sheet of paper underneath the bench that you are sitting on, or for choir members underneath your chair. I invite you to dig under there and find it. And let me distribute them if you don't have enough. Anyone that doesn't have one? Look at that. Okay. On your clipboard, let me tell you what we're doing. On your clipboard or binder or nothing, sorry, choir members, there's a sheet of paper. Don't turn the paper over yet. Just look at the front page. And I want you to fill out this front page of this sheet. And I want us to stay in a silent, meditative kind of space as we fill out this sheet of paper. You might write notes, you might doodle. You all are going to be able to answer these questions in completely different ways, depending on if it's your first time or you've been here for 30 years. So I understand that. Try to answer the questions in a way that resonates with what brought you here today. And I invite you to do it in a sacred way. Like, dig out the stories that feel vulnerable that you want to share and that help you tell a little bit of the story of why you're here today. And we're just going to take a few moments, and what will bring us out of this is a slideshow of some photos of our history of UUCO. So in just a few moments, after we've had some time to finish writing, we'll then continue in meditation with a slideshow. Okay? over 30 years ago, on a crisp morning, January 19th, 1992, possibly a day like this morning, this community celebrated Charter Sunday, when the Unitarian Universalist Society of Ogden was formally established. It was hard to figure out how many charter members there were. Some records say 62, some say 58. I've heard as many as 68 that signed the book on that first Charter Sunday or in the month following. A note at that time from the leadership at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Missoula, a handwritten note that I found when cleaning out the storage unit, said to you all that formal religion in Ogden is coming of age, owing no doubt to the missionary zeal of those of you who have spearheaded the drive to round up enough closet Unitarians and crypto Universalists to make it possible for liberal religion to begin finding itself in Ogden. This wasn't the first time that Unitarians had gathered together in Ogden. Back in 1892, 100 years earlier than our Charter Sunday, the first Unitarian Society was organized in Ogden. And nearly 15 years later, the first Unitarian Church of Ogden was established, and it was served by radical socialist, the Reverend William Thurston Brown. And again, in the 1950s, there were several attempts to gather and offer religious education and build community together. But it wasn't until 1992 when this community was officially born. Your first minister, Sarah Lammert, fresh out of seminary, came just 1 year later. And in 1997, you switched names and claimed the name of church in your title. In these 33 years, and indeed in the multiple attempts dating back more than 100 years, you have co-created a Unitarian Universalist presence in Ogden and beyond. And as with stories of anyone's history, your stories include some sadness and triumph, some disappointment and some joy. Lots of joy. And it is important to remember that these stories, especially in those times when we wish to imagine our way into the future, which is what we have been doing together, it is said that you can't rewrite history. But in essence, we are constantly doing just that, telling and retelling our stories, and in doing so, making new meaning from what we now understand of our histories. Even when we think our story is entrenched and stagnant, we find new ways to tell it fresh and anew. The author Rachel Naomi Remen talks about how her family clings to the childhood story of her being the clumsy one of the family. Her adult friends and colleagues describe her as graceful. They've never once seen her trip over her own feet or drop something. And yet, somehow, when Rachel goes back to her parents' house or attends a family reunion, she spills coffee on at least one outfit. She stubs more than one toe, and she trips on more steps than she can count. In retelling our stories, we invite ourselves to reclaim who we are and who we want to be. Even if there were stories of our past that were true, it allows us to claim an identity of who we want to be going forward. Action and reflection, an endless cycle of storytelling and meaning-making as we make our future. So today we're going to turn to one another and share our stories with each other. In essence, what we're going to do is we're going to interview each other. But I want you to think about it today less clinically than that. Rather than an interview, we're going to think about this as a spiritual act of supporting each other in sharing our stories. We're going to listen deeply to each other. I invite you to share vulnerably with each other. And we're going to act as sacred scribe to the stories of this congregation. And then after we hear each other's stories today, we're going to collect these pages that you all have been writing, and we're going to save them and share them in a museum that we're creating. We've told you about this museum where we've been sorting through the storage rooms that we've had and pulling out all the artifacts of our stories of this congregation. And in March, we'll be sharing them all with you, along with your stories as captions to the artifacts that we're finding. We'll share them anonymously, so don't worry about it. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to turn to someone near you who is not a family member. This might take a little bit of shuffling. And I want you to take your clipboard and your pen with you to wherever it is that you find yourself with your new partner. So can everyone partner up with someone who's not a family member? And get your clipboard, and then I'll tell you what the rest of the directions are. And you might need to move around a little bit. That's okay. All right. Does everybody have a partner? Let me finish the rest of the directions. So does everybody have a partner? Is there anyone without a partner? Suzanne, will you join a group and we can do it as a 3Z or join with Joseph? All right, everyone's got a partner, okay? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I want you to pass your clipboard to your partner. Or if you're in a 3Z, you can just rotate it around. So somebody else is writing. And then I'm going to invite you to turn your paper over, and there are more questions on the other side. If you are online with us, you're going to get the questions in the chat, and Dylan is going to help you participate in whatever way makes sense for the group that's online. Okay. All right. Don't talk yet. I'm going to tell you the rest of the directions. Okay, here we go. Your partner is going to interview you, and then they are going to write down the stories that you share. And you might find that there's some pithy quotes that you want to write down, or just something that really sticks in your memory, or just some words that you really want to make sense of that the person has shared. Capture whatever it is that you can. This is going to be a fast process, so it's not going to go real deep, but we'll try to take it as deep as we can, okay? You'll have approximately 5 minutes for both of you to speak. So the way it's going to look is 1 minute for both of you to hear the question and reflect on it a little bit silently, and then 2 minutes for each person to speak. Not a long time, okay? So you're telling a 2-minute story, and the other person will write down your answers. There are 3 questions, so we'll take about 15 minutes total. It might be helpful if one of you has like a timer, because I'm not going to be dinging a bell or anything. I want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered and gets through all 3 questions in 15 minutes. Does that make sense? Say it again. Page 2. But I mean, okay, we're trying to get deep, good stories out of you. You all take this and make it work for whatever your partnership is, okay? I know. But we're going to take it in a sacred way. I'm being teachy, but also we're going to hold this in a spiritual kind of way with each other, okay? It's going to get loud. So maybe try to keep yourselves to your little bubble so it's not too loud in here. And I am going to bring you back together in 15 minutes, okay? Thank you for listening deeply to each other's stories. You may begin.
It's my story. That's okay. And I sit in a service of God. The topic was my spiritual journey. So I talked about music.
something that like.
So I think it felt more, may have felt a connection because I was sharing my personal.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like coming out of the more time passes without it, I'm like, it's still something else, you know?
I did go through like 4
Yeah.
1 minute.
So I guess that means you can touch for 3 minutes. Or a minute.
I don't know. You're supposed to write what I say down.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, my first
What am I supposed to talk
That's still the same thing, so.
Time in your life, in the life of the congregation, you felt deeply connected.
They were too many to tell.
And so I started doing my own like Google research. So that was like 2 months ago. Over the last 2 months.
When you speak very openly and personally, you just gotta spit it out. And when I spit it out, wrong time. And I feel accepted, even though I'm because of it, I try to make people it's what you need when the times are tough. And also, when I have to put my hand in Peter's belt so that I can be close to him and sing on the right key. And also when I just let go because I now find I'm contralto, and today I was singing soprano, alto, and bass and tenor. I just
Ziggy's doing their website.
Right, yeah, I've been writing. Being nice to people, singing.
And post to everyone else when I look in their eyes as they sing.
It's just great to hear.
So that's really cool.
So this is fantasy.
The next and then this one, yeah. So read well, one time, one time some sadness is when, we had been in that old building for a good while. I don't know what the new building is going to be like, and I was comfortable and familiar. And also, had to the old, there was such a great piano. So, that was sad too.
Okay. That's awesome. And how long have you been?
So I guess it's a little bit of mourning over the old building. Yeah, I feel okay about it. Yeah, it's grown on me, and I kind of like our cozy space here. Fill up the space. I don't think we ever, well, I don't remember ever getting the entire place.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
There's just, I think, a different vibe. People are sitting shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah,
sense of
it's kind of a
community.
weird place because, I mean, I grew up with family, and my parents are still, all my friends are still, and it's just a really weird place to be in when,
It's like this. What he would have been like.
there's no they want to have conversations with you. You know, like, I'm never gonna judge or like, I'm never gonna shut them down because I think a lot of it is still like things that I still hold on to. I mean, the whole reason why I don't want to leave, but then like being aware of that. So you can hold on to this idea of someone else, you know, kind of. Yeah, it's a really interesting feeling. And I bet it's different on my end, so
This is a Unitarian church. Right where you want to go.
That's the only way to
And it's pretty good.
It's fun. Yeah, like, same with my family. They always come back. Medicine. And so I try to meet them like, you know, what you're calling, how's it going? Yeah. But they don't, what they know, it's like, no one is doing that. They never passes me.
We break the rules here.
You know what you're doing.
Proud or excited?
yeah, I definitely felt that. I don't think I had like necessarily thought about it.
Is these a choir coming back from club?
It was like I came out.
Choir. Remember, it was like a year and a half.
What was that?
This is your family and a half.
So that was so my family's fine, but I do recognize that with people where they're like, I don't want to talk about it.
He said when Kristin said when Kristin agreed to be our minister. It's not okay with me. Okay, ask her if she
Hey, Kristin,
Which I guess like the whole point of
play
it
the
is
piano. We actually just,
Not yet, because people will think that it's time to come back together again.
when they're getting back together.
The cue for them coming back together will be to sing our next song, and so I don't want them to think that it's time to do that yet.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this?
Yeah. You know, after I can't play, it's like, second, it's like, and then I hated the discipline.
Yeah.
So then I play guitar. I can play bongos.
Bongos?
Yeah. And I kind of been at the repertoire. That's why So what else have you done?
What would I have been? Well, I remember when I was a freshman in high school, I wanted to be
When I was in junior, taking that interest, when I found out
Yeah, I remember finding that out. Yeah, because I had a meeting with my counselor. We actually had a meeting with my counselor where I think I found the paper from when I had met with the counselor like later on after I just had to. I got more into music during that time.
What age did you want to be?
Ninth grade, so I guess I was like.
Same thing. They make you get interested. Art and science. So you look at them and you see what that's what it said. I can understand it now. I'm trying to
Did they say you should? Is that one of the recommendations? Mine said an urban or regional plan, like some of the plans cities, or like a stronger or
So
for me, it was like that was like elementary age, like end of elementary, I guess, maybe third or third.
yeah. Yeah, and the computer looks like there's one of those scans.
Oh, yeah.
Black.
Oh, that's like, yeah, yeah. So there were.
Good. Will you bring them back in about a minute?
Yeah.
I have to be in one exam for yourself. Celebrated to the
The next year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Where do we come? Yeah.
Thanks, maybe a little bit of music.
Yeah, I'll play a little so I want to get their attention back. Because that was going to start off with song.
And then we can get it.
Like something. And then their leadership.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. Same thing with the other side of
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, not really.
We live in Washington.
Okay. We're gonna get it.
This is the closest one to us. Because I think it's just this one.
Thank you.
It's like it's not.
Oh. I've never heard of
So on our next hymn, what we'll do is we'll sing through, this is 1003 in the teal book. 1003. We're going to sing straight through all 4 lines without repeating. And then you can either follow this side or this side. This is choose your own adventure.
For those of you old enough to remember those.
As we enter into a spirit of prayer, I invite you to take those sacred interview sheets and just place them back under your pews or under your chairs so that we can collect them later. And then I invite you to find a comfortable place in your seat, to find a place of presence, so we can spend some time in meditation and prayer. And in this silence, I invite you to bring to mind those loved ones who are on your mind and on your hearts this morning. Just let them sit right there on your heart. This morning, instead of coming forward to light candles as we often do, I'm going to ring a bell, and I'll invite you to just say all the names aloud of the people or the places that are on your heart. And you can whisper them, or you can say them loudly if they need to be said loudly. And it'll be okay. We're not going to do it one at a time. We're just going to say them all at once. It'll be busy. And we can trust that a spirit of care will envelop them as their names are said aloud, even if we all speak at the same time as one voice. So I'm going to ring a bell. And then I invite you to say all those names and places aloud. And I'm going to light a candle with the flame from our chalice for all the names on our hearts, either that were spoken aloud or that remain on our hearts unspoken this morning. There has really been a plethora of heavy news this week, not the least of which is a series of fires burning uncontrollably in Los Angeles County. This morning, we offer our love and care to all of those we know and all of those we don't, who will be living with the aftermath of these fires for decades. The lives lost, the things that made a home and a community that have burned. It's so hard to watch this happen. Perhaps it brings up our own stories of loss, or makes us heartbroken to see the effects of climate change. Perhaps it brings up rage for all the ways that our leaders politicize devastation. And we pray this morning that we stay kind-hearted in the midst of this tragedy. And of course, this isn't the only heartbreak happening in the world. In addition to the countless lives that are lost each day to unnecessary violence and a lack of human rights and basic needs, there are also a few people we lost that might be on our minds as voices of reason and care in the world. Recently, those people include humanitarian Jimmy Carter and musicians Peter Yarrow and Josh White Jr. And we trust that these voices have paved the way for more kindness and more justice in this world. And may we be compelled to lift our own voices and move our own bodies in ways that change the world for the better. Amen. May it be so.
As we move into known and unknown times, the UUCO community and our wider Ogden community, in taking care of each other, we'll be doing what we can to make sure we have the resources to care for and support one another. The offering we collect each week always supports us in doing this kind of important ministry. But in the days and weeks to come, our sharing of resources may become even more important. As we collect our offering today, we remember our interconnectedness and interdependence, and we generously offer our care with hopes to support all through these times. Please rise, embody your voice, and facing the center aisle, sing together the offering song printed in your order of service. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Thank you for your generous offering. To care for one another and care for our wider Ogden community. Now we have some invitations to offer. Next Sunday, don't miss our UUCO coffee hour, an adult religious education offering after the service in the Geneva room right across the hall. All are welcome to gather for an interactive workshop on our congregation's engagement with the future of environmental activism and the climate crisis. Don't miss it. We're all excited about our dear minister's ordination. It will be March 15th. You'll find information about the event in your newsletter this week. We will be hosting a watch party here, and we know that some of you plan to attend in person in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We'd love to know if you're planning to attend in person. Please follow the link in the newsletter to RSVP on there. Thank you. Okay, our closing song. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action.
And this closing blessing and benediction comes to us from the Reverend Rod Richards. May the stories we create honor our ancestors, prove worthy of our children and our children's children, and tell of connection and compassion in this present moment. May it be so.